Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Roses Are Reddit, the official Reddit Bachelor podcast, coming to you live in 3D. I don't know why I said that, but it's probably cool, so we're just going to go with it. Today on our podcast, we have some very, very special guests. They are in order: Queen Overthrown, Texas Fiend, and Taylor Nolan. You need to wait until I say hi, everybody, before you say something.
You said it was 3D, so I wanted to give more people different looks.
That wasn't a very coordinated introduction. we should have practiced that.
Okay. Fuck it. So Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Excited
Thanks for coming on.
Be on it.
Yeah, I am very excited to have you here. So let's get right into it because we have a lot to cover. So Taylor, I'm looking at my notes, and Taylor also has a podcast that you should check out, just on top of the show, called Let's Talk About It. Taylor, you want to give us a quick pitch of this podcast?
Yeah, so Let's Talk About It is a podcast about all kinds of different mental health topics, and really just talking about topics that are really uncomfortable and that we usually steer away from. So it just gives people an opportunity to start these conversations. Like, we did an episode on eating disorders, and some stuff is on relationship stuff. I had Derek on there for one, and it's with just a good friend of mine, and it's pretty relaxed, but we also try to give some good information to help people if we can. So I've really enjoyed doing it, and you guys should check it out. That's awesome.
And awesome. Definitely will. I think that could be a very good listen.
Yeah.
So just giving my enthusiastic thumbs up.
Thank you.
So, here's a question about your podcast. I'm gonna read the notes directly because the question is very well worded.
Okay.
It says, we've noticed on your podcast you really open up about your own life experiences and talk about real topics that affect a lot of people, such as scoliosis, anxiety, and family issues, such as drinking problems. Do you feel like being on The Bachelor has helped you open up about your own life and see that people are open and responsive to these topics?
Really good question. I think I was already a pretty open person about my own life and, my opinions and everything before the show. If anything, I would actually say because of some of the backlash that I got, I almost tried to filter and censor myself a little bit more post-show experience because I was really scared of people disagreeing with me and opening myself up to potential negativity. So interestingly enough, I think it kind of had the opposite impact. But as I've kind of gotten back to myself and post-show kind of getting back to normal life, that's all kind of came back. I've always, my mom likes to joke that I came out of the womb talking. So I've always been a pretty open person.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that being open about that stuff, did that help? So I guess to kind of turn that question around, because you basically said, I've always been like this. Do you feel like that helped you in your experience on The Bachelor?
Not necessarily. I think, I know for other girls, it was definitely a process that did help them open up more because they started talking about their feelings for the first time, kind of. And for me, I almost kind of wish that I had been a little bit more censored and maybe not filtered, but had really thought through everything a little bit more before opening up, because I went into it being I'm going to be totally open and just be myself in every way and just let everything out, because you never know what they're going to go with. And so I might as well give them the full range of Taylor. And then, as we saw, they kind of do make it this one-dimensional thing. So I think being so open didn't necessarily benefit me on the show. I mean, maybe if I had actually had a stronger connection with the lead, then it totally would have benefited me more in that way. But my experience was very different.
Okay, fair. So you mentioned that you said you felt like the edit kind of betrayed you a little bit because of your openness. Do you think that, have you kind of reconciled with that and the backlash from it? Because it's kind of taken you down a path that you hadn't previously walked down?
Yeah. And I think, I think Paradise was a very different story as well.
Yeah. We've got some questions about that. So
Okay.
don't worry.
Yeah.
But I guess specific to The Bachelor, first off.
Can you repeat the question again?
So even though you experienced some backlash from your edit, how have you kind of reconciled with that because it's taken
Yes.
you back
Gotcha.
that you haven't really been?
Yes, I have. It took a very long time though, and a lot of therapy and a lot of talking things through. Definitely was not easy to do, but I do feel like I've reached a point where I understand why things happened the way that they did, not only in my actual experience filming, but also in what was aired, and also with how America reacted to everything. So took a long time, and even struggled with that throughout Paradise as well. But I have reconciled with it. Yeah.
So, okay, so there's a question that is here, but I'm going to pause on that one because I think there's a question at the end where we'll all get to answer that, I think. So let's get on to the basic question behind it. Is what made you decide to audition for this show?
I was kind of at a point in my life that was just kind of like, if I'm going to do anything like out there like this, now is the time. My stepdad came back from a Mariners game and was pretty drunk, and we were watching JoJo's premiere, and they have the like casting for The Bachelor, and he was just like hounding me over and over and over, like, you need to put an application in. Oh my God, that'd be so cool to see you on there. Like, you would analyze this and do that and like all this stuff. And there was like a super easy application online that was just like your demographic information and a photo. And so I was kind of like, okay, I'll submit this. Nothing's going to happen from it. Like, still just going to go about my life, my life plan that I had. And it was, again, shortly after I had graduated, and it was right before I was kind of getting really into my career. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, now's the time. So, yeah.
So what was, before all of this happened, what was your life plan?
My good old life plan. So my plan from the time I was like a sophomore in high school was to get my bachelor's in psychology and then go on to get my master's so I can practice as a therapist. So far so good on that plan, that I got my master's. But then after that, once I graduated, my plan was to work at a community mental health agency part-time and then be developing my private practice in the evenings. And, it was going to take me about 2.5 years to get full licensure here in Washington State. I'd already found like a supervisor I was going to be working with, and had already, opened up a space, like rented a space out that I knew I was going to see clients in, and, developed my website and all those things, and was just thinking, I was going to have this like simple life of just like spending time with friends and family, and, the other things I'm passionate about, and, working at my private practice.
It's
that was my nice little plan.
Like, you thought of this as a sophomore in high school. When I was a sophomore in high school, like, I was nowhere near this motivated. I was like, oh man, I'm just going to hang out in the music, play piano. Like,
yeah. I knew.
No, continue. You knew what?
Well, I knew, like, I took a psych course in high school that was like, yeah, I want to, be a therapist and help people learn how to help themselves. And it was, for me, going into a field that is so, like, it's not even really a field of work. It's just life. Like, if you really think about it, everything that you're working with in psychology is really just life. And, I'm definitely like a very passionate, strong animal person, but I also am a people person. And like, I like trying to help people when I can. So it just felt really natural and was something I was always really like excited about. And it didn't ever feel like, oh, I have to go to work. You know, it felt like, oh, like I'm really excited like to see this client today and see the things that they're, you know, realizing about themselves and the things that they're struggling with and how we can work through that like as a team. And yeah, it was just always like good work.
So it's kind of a different question, but so were you watching like a lot of The Bachelor before, and were you kind of thinking of these things of the contestants, like as you were watching before kind of you were on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, before I was on it, I looked at it definitely as like a guilty pleasure. And there's a lot of people in the mental health field who, you know, look at it like that.
Right.
And even I remember during my graduate program, I worked at a substance abuse rehabilitation outpatient program. And one of the other counselors would watch it, you know, and every Tuesday when I'd come into my practicum, you know, she'd be like, oh, this is actually Caitlin's season, I remember, because she was like, who do you think she's going to pick? Like, is she going to pick Sean or is she going to pick Nick? And I was like, oh, she's going to pick Sean for sure. And, you know, so like.
Everyone knew it was Sean.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And now I always think back to that moment too. And I'm like, I wonder if she ever watched and knew that I was on there, because we would always talk about it. But yeah, I would, you know, it's a social experiment. So watching it, I was always like, oh my God, like this is so interesting how all these things play out. And when I went on, I was kind of looking at it as like, you know, wow, I get like my firsthand look like into this really just wild social experiment. But then I forgot that I was like, I'm subjective.
Also being like recorded at all times.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you auditioned, was there someone you were particularly hoping to see? Because I remember they announced Nick kind of late. So
yeah.
Were you hoping for Nick, or was there someone else?
No. So I mean, when I had confirmed being a contestant, a cast member, whatever we are, they hadn't announced anything, and I was just thinking it was going to be Luke, because that was what everyone, like, thank God it wasn't.
Oh yeah.
I would have been sent home like first, second week.
Oh my God.
I probably would have left. But
Call
when they said it was Nick, I had already been like confirmed as a cast member. So
gotcha.
And again, when I thought it was going to be Luke and I found out it was Nick, I was like very excited.
Okay.
So,
well,
yeah.
I think most people on the sub would agree with you.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people even I don't even know if a lot of people like Nick, but it's very anti-Luke.
Yeah, for me, I was like, you know, Nick has a beard. I'm all about the beards. And, you know, he was open about talking about like sexuality. And I'm very open about talking about that kind of stuff. And just seemed like someone I could like have an interesting conversation with. And we certainly have. But
that's a good start. Better than anything probably Luke could have done.
Yeah.
Especially given his performance on Winter Games, I think we can safely say. Yeah. So I think the big thing with you on Nick's season was your relationship with Corinne. And I feel that would be, everyone's probably asked you this. So
yeah,
I know that the edit made it seem like you two were just like the worst of companions, but there's obviously a lot that's not shown. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with her and how it was and how it's played out since?
I mean, how it's played out since, we don't speak. The last time I spoke with her was at we spoke on Paradise. But I don't know. It's hard because watching it back and seeing the edit, like, there were so many important pieces of context that were left out. So for me, when I even think about like processing and sharing that, it's like, well, I don't totally know how to answer that. Because I mean, to be just totally frank and honest about it, like, I didn't hate her. I saw some things, some major red flags in terms of just like actual health for her, and like tried to help out because no one else was doing anything. And I kind of forgot that, like, I'm in a competition, and things definitely backfired. I'm not going to speak for her. We didn't completely hate each other. There were definitely times that like we were laughing about stuff together. And even in that conversation in Wisconsin, which was about 2 hours long, there were parts during that conversation where like there was ash that came on my jacket and she'd freak out and we'd laugh, and like it wasn't all this like combative drama that they showed on the season. I mean, there definitely were other positive parts of it, and I was definitely very, very hurt by her, and really disappointed, especially at Women's Tell All. But again, you're not going to be friends with everyone, and that's kind of the stance that I've taken on it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of speaking of that, I feel like Nick's girls, more than kind of anybody, they definitely have like this clique of like 6 or 7 of them that are just like always together. Do you kind of associate yourself with them, or are you just like you're not part of that? And and it'd be great if you could provide an explanation as to whatever it is that you are.
I mean, I kind of have my own little clique of me and Derek.
That's a good clique.
Yeah.
Good clique.
which like feels super great, honestly, because it definitely felt a little isolating before Paradise. And the thing with, all the girls that are in like the clique that you're speaking of, I'm cool with all of them and have like separate individual relationships with each and every one of them. And they all connect and bond in a mutual things, I suppose. I think at the beginning, a lot has to do with popularity. And I know that some of them would definitely admit to that.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it.
This is fine.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, because like everyone becomes like, you become friends with people who you have that connection with,
Right.
I have individual connections with all of them, but like they all connect as a group, and that's fine. Like, do your thing.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
So, just changing gears for this one question, and then we'll kind of get into Paradise and Derek, because we all want to know about that. So your job and your practice, did it take a hit kind of following the show? And just kind of, I guess people say mental health counselor. It'd be great if you could just kind of give like a little bit more in depth about like, what is it that you actually are doing? And then kind of going into how the show affected that.
Yeah. So, I guess pre-show, I had set up, my practice and all that, and was just like getting ready to start seeing clients about like a few weeks before the show started airing. And I had a few people who had I had a Psychology Today ad up, which is a website to help people find practicing clinicians in their area, and it's a great website to use. And so I had an ad up on that. And then once the show started airing, there was a lot of attention, and there was a lot of just a different part of your identity that you start to, take on. And I basically started getting some hate email at about the 3rd week. And people were like emailing me through my Psychology Today ad. People were
That's weird.
Yeah. And it gets weirder.
I love weirder.
And people would message me, saying that they had seen me on the show, and so they really wanted to come see me. And like that made me feel pretty uncomfortable.
Right.
So wait, they were
because you
making
don't-
appointments. They were making appointments to come see you and trash you.
I don't know if that was their intention. People would say, you know, that they saw me on the show and really loved me and really needs some help with anxiety and, you know, would love to schedule an appointment. And then, you know, before I went on the show, I thought really hard about this and I talked about it in supervision and all this stuff. And I guess the one piece that I was missing that I didn't really realize, I guess I was naive to because I've never been on a freaking TV show before, was like the weird celebrityism that happens. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm making it one. That like people start to view you in a very different way because you've been on TV. And I was just kind of thought like, yeah, whatever. Like I went and had this experience, but like, you know, I'm just Taylor, like trying to, you know, develop my private practice.
Is that some, so the celebrityism, if I can just pause for and ask this question, is that something that you're seeking or is that just kind of like an unwelcome?
No.
Okay,
I mean, no. And again, I mean, for anyone who no.
So I guess
I see positives of it, but that's not at all where I was thinking things were going to go. I thought maybe I would have a client who would start to come see me and then maybe would do some deeper research and would see that I was on the show. That was my thought.
Okay.
But yeah, then it just got really uncomfortable because I was like, you know, I don't know people's motives. Like there were really negative things being said about me and my career by Corinne on the show. And she really was like a narrator for our season. So, you know, people were taking that narrative on to be true. Some people, other people were seeing through, you know, drunkenness and other stuff. But you know, I just decided, I was like, I'm just going to refer all these people out. And like, I think I should maybe put this on pause because, you know, this just isn't going the way that I thought. And even if I had had a more positive edit or a more popular edit, I still don't think I would have been comfortable because there's so much that changes within yourself. And for me to be fully present and be able to actually help people in session, like, I need to be in a good space, you know, to be able to like separate my stuff. And there's so much that happens during that experience and afterwards that like you can't be prepared for. And the craziest thing that ever happened in relation to my career and the show was that someone, a person who I had never seen as a client, who I had never had any contact with, reported me to the Washington State Department of Health for unprofessional behavior on the show. And
I think I saw someone posted something about that way back.
Oh my God, I don't remember. Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah. So that was like one of the worst days ever and felt really, really shitty. Like felt beyond shitty.
How do you manage that? Like, do you just be like, who are these people? Or like, how do you even like try to like argue something from an anonymous source who just saw you on TV?
Yeah, so I mean, the Department of Health didn't do anything with it. It wasn't like we're opening up an investigation or anything like that. It was just like, hey, just so you know, someone has filed this and we're not doing anything about it. Because clearly it was ridiculous.
Right, yeah.
But it was just, I mean, it definitely made me feel like I was like some kind of a target and like I was this terrible person who had done something really, really terrible. Like the fact that people felt this strongly about it. But again, that's how, you know, people get very, very wrapped up when they see these characters on TV and you forget that like we're regular people with regular lives that like we would, for the most part, most of us, I think, would like to go back to, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like it's gotten a little better? Sorry, okay, but do you feel like it's gotten a little better since you've been off the show or been off Paradise for a little bit? Like, has it everything kind of calmed down, or do you still get like a lot of weird stuff still happening on like social media?
I mean, I rarely get any kind of like negativity or like, weird things. There are still like things that happen. I mean, as we've been on the phone, Derek texted me saying, you just missed out. Like 15 high school girls swarmed me and asked a million questions about you. I've never been more embarrassed, actually. LOL. It was intense, and now everyone around here is staring. I felt naked to not have you here to be a part of it. Baby, I can't wait to see you. So it like weird things like that definitely still happen. And, being as a couple definitely makes it feel a lot better. I mean, things do start to die down, but then you'd be really surprised in places where you would never expect someone to like recognize you or say anything. They do.
Yeah. Interesting. I think so. I guess my question now that you've answered Texas is, I think there's definitely a lot of people who go on the show to achieve this kind of celebrityism.
And I think that's pretty clear too. I think you can tell.
Yeah. So actually, we just had I think, oh God, who was it? It was Jacqueline, right? Jacqueline said she wanted to get Instagram famous. Like, she said straight up, like, that's what I want. I was like, that's acceptable. Like, I can commend that. I think it definitely feels like that's not a place that that's not a mindset that you were in when you went on the show.
No, I mean, I was like in this whole phase of, so casting started in June and I became single in January. And so I had been like exploring dating, and I had been doing a lot of like vulnerability work with my clients. And so I was like just dating as many people as I could and just trying to like challenge myself in being vulnerable. And it was kind of like, what better way to challenge myself in being vulnerable than go on this show and date this guy while he's also dating a bunch of other girls, and like,
sounds like a good way to be vulnerable.
Yeah, like definitely a challenge in showing up and like, having those walls down. And I think it just, I guess there are parts of it that like now, going on Paradise was definitely more of like, nothing's going to fucking come of this. Like, I might as well see, if I can get some more ads since I'm not like working right now.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it too, definitely. But even doing what I do now, like I do the ads on social media and then I do the podcast. And before having the podcast, I definitely felt like very lost and sad that like I wasn't following my plan. And so doing the podcast allowed for me to still do something related to mental health that like felt safe and was also taking advantage of the platform that I have. But it's also interesting because doing that kind of career, and this is like something very honest that I actually have not spoke about like in any kind of public way, is that those two jobs, the podcast and doing some on social media, require relevancy and followers and numbers. And my plan, my career, what I always thought I'd be doing has nothing really to do with that. You need, a steady flow of clients coming in, but it's totally different. And I really don't like that part of it. I would still be doing a podcast if I didn't have the following and if I didn't have ads, but it definitely like it messes with your head a little bit because things do become a popularity contest. So there are parts of it that are like, now I have to focus on Instagram, and that's really stressful and sometimes makes me feel like shit. So I'm going to try to be as authentic and like vulnerable on here as I can.
No, I think you're doing a really great job about it, because I think it's good to have people kind of speak a little bit more about the stuff that we don't get to see. So it's good to get that side of it. I think for us, we really appreciate that. Just getting on. Go.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of people want that as well, right? Like they want that kind of vulnerability and being like, oh, like, yeah, like this is something I think about. Like that, identifying with that, I think helps people relate a lot better.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I think something that was a bit interesting that kind of popped up on our sub, I think we talked a little bit before we started recording, that we might want to kind of talk about a little bit was, some people on the sub said they met you and they took some pictures and posted on the sub. And, I think we kind of spoke a little about it before, that some of it didn't come off the way that you might have intended. I don't know if we wanted to go into that topic for a little bit. If not, maybe we could cut this, but, any thoughts on just interactions with fans and kind of how interactions with fans nowadays work when they don't get the whole side of the story and just that side of things?
Yeah. I think it's hard for people sometimes. because they don't know how to react, because it's really weird to see someone who you watched on TV then all of a sudden be in real life. And you have all these kind of expectations and this bias as to what you think this person is going to be or should be. When I'm out, like, I'm a very outgoing person. I like to meet new people. I like to make friends, regardless of if I'm in a relationship or not. And yeah, what happened on that, I think definitely was someone viewing me as more of like someone who was on TV when I was just trying to be a normal person. And I don't know. Should I say, do you want me to go into some of the details that we talked about beforehand?
If you want to, up to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's do it.
I think that if, like, I'll always say, if anyone ever does meet me in real life, to just come up and talk to me and just like say hello, and don't act like, what happened in this situation in Vegas was the girl acted like she had no idea who I was. And so I thought I was just having a genuine interaction with someone, and like genuinely got to know the girl and asked her questions about herself, and, thought like both of our groups were mingling with each other. And, then it kind of turned out that like she knew who I was the whole time and was basically like testing me because her guy friend had invited us to hang out at the tables with them, and it was Derek's sister's bachelorette party, and turned it around to be this whole like I used them for their tables and all this stuff. And it's like, we were invited multiple times. Like, I don't know what it was that you wanted from us or from me. And she thought it was really weird that I like hadn't disclosed that I was dating Derek or that I was even on the show. I think that was more a part of it, that like she was expecting me, I guess, in our conversations, just like, oh, and by the way, in case you didn't know, I was on The Bachelor. And like, that's not what I lead with. That's not how I define myself. So, I mean, I think I would just say for any fan, or not even, if you don't even want to call yourself a fan, just someone who has watched the show and recognized me, like, there's no shame in just being like, oh yeah, you're Taylor from the show, right? Like, and then I still will have a normal conversation. Yeah, that's right. And, I think she was probably worried, like, had she said that maybe she wouldn't have, had the time with us that she did, maybe. Like, maybe we wouldn't have wanted to hang out at her table if that was the case. But, like, I have still made friends with people who recognize me from the show. Like, I'm not, I don't know. There were all kinds of weird things to her perception of the story. And, fine, that's her perception. That's valid. But it was definitely very hurtful to, have 2 nights worth of interactions with this person that I thought like we were having a genuine, connection and conversation, and all the while she was being pretty deceitful and like sneaky about it. So it makes me then question, okay, how do I handle myself in public then? Like, am I more guarded? Because I know there are other girls on the show that I've brought my friends around who are like just my normal friends, and they are like very cold towards them, and they don't want to hang out with people who aren't associated with the show for some of those reasons, I think. And that's like pretty valid now that I've had this experience.
Well, when we go to Rockbox, I will not make a post about totally use this for drinks. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
We've got you, like, we don't even drink that much at Rockbox, except for that drink. You ever had the Salaryman, which is like the massive, it's literally like a fucking Long Island iced tea, but it tastes like an apple. It tastes like green apple. It's amazing.
Sounds great.
Interesting. I don't actually drink, so I don't know, but I'm sure it's delicious.
I've been trying to cut down. Like, I think I've been doing it, but like that thing just.
You have a problem, Mark.
If you need the liquid courage, like that's the thing. Like one of those things is ready. You're like, I'm gonna go do Forgot About Dre.
And if I happen, please don't assume I'm like trying to hook up with other people.
Oh, like, of course not.
My goodness.
I mean, like you don't have a ring on your finger. I don't know. That was a terrible joke. I apologize.
It's okay. And I actually did just my friend Kit, who works at the piano bar here, me and him actually did just do a podcast kind of talking about this Vegas situation a little bit. Like we just talked about like, when is it appropriate to disclose that you're in a relationship? And it was a whole conversation.
I have a boyfriend.
My name is Taylor. I'm engaged. Don't talk to me.
I have a boyfriend.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
No, I think it's really good to have like at least someone who's been on the show kind of address. We've had contestants on before, but just having someone who could kind of like speak to interactions of people who have been on the sub and kind of see both sides of things. I think it's kind of good just to have someone speak a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
So speaking of you being engaged, I hear you're engaged.
That is the thing. Thank you.
So my first question is, how does it feel to be engaged to a celebrity? Because I know that John Krasinski is like super fun, and it must be really hard, especially because he's married to Emily Blunt and has kids. So like, can you just kind of go into like how the dynamic of that works? Like, does he see you on weekends, and does he get Emily on the week? Like, I want to like understand this a little bit.
We're actually very much in like a poly relationship. We worked very hard, like a triad, and we have really good open communication skills. So it's going great.
Does Jenna Fisher come around and get really, really mad at you? How dare you steal Jim away from me?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally standing, so we have a good bond.
Okay, well, as long as you've got that work, I think that you're in a good position.
Yes, yes.
But actual stuff about Derek. So
yeah.
So I think that the big thing about you and Derek and Tex, I think you might be echoing just a little bit, but I can't really tell.
All right, I'll try to not move.
So I think the thing that really kind of stood out to me when I was watching your season on Paradise was that you had this really in-depth conversation with Derek about your insecurities and your feelings, and I think that was something that's really not done on the show. So was there any situation in your past that kind of prepared you for that conversation with him? Or is that just you drawing from your self-confidence and your psychology background, saying like, this is how I would do it or how I would tell my patients to do it, therefore I should practice what I preach?
Yeah, I mean, that really is just me. I am, like I said, so open. And I mean, I wish that they could have shown a little bit more of our conversations. Our first conversation was, no joke, like 3 hours long. And then we both went to ITMs and then went and had the bonfire and talked again for like another 2.5 hours, just the two of us. And that's really just how I am in a relationship. And I mean, Derek's very good at listening, and he's very good at asking questions, and he's very good at sharing himself. So for me, I will always share upfront, once we're like starting to get to know each other, things that I've learned from my past relationships. And one of those insecurities and, trigger points that were shown on the show was about language that's used. And, I've been in abusive relationships in the past where they were either very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, and my very first relationship was a little bit physically abusive as well. So it's always something like I like to set that standard. And it was interesting. There was like a lot of context in that argument that wasn't shown where, the night before we started filming again for the shutdown, we had a phone conversation where we were just talking about things, and then it just came up, and I shared with him about how my previous relationship was like that. And, that's like a line I draw in relationships. That's one of my boundaries. Like, I won't accept someone talking to me like that. And then legit, like, 2-3 days in a pair, whatever it was, he had done it. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, we just talked about that.
Whoops.
Yeah. But I was very, very proud of him for like how he was able to talk with me about it, because not everyone would respond that way. And there have definitely been other times where I've been dating someone and that kind of stuff has came up, and I've just, had to call it quits because it's not something I'm going to accept in a healthy, romantic relationship. It's just not okay.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good line to draw in the sand. I mean, I think everyone needs to form their own boundaries. And I think that the fact that you very clearly defined and communicate yours, I think is very healthy. At least as someone who is in a relationship but has zero experience policing other people's relationships, that just feels to me like a healthy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of skip through some of these in-depth questions and get to kind of, so like, you guys currently are not living together, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So
I'm in Seattle and he's in New York.
So is there plans to kind of merge, or is this like kind of so what's the long-term goal here? Is it going to be, oh, I'd love to live in Seattle, or is Taylor moving to the big city?
Well, I love Seattle, and
Good.
He has a job like at a bank that he has to be at in person.
We have banks. I'm just saying.
I know, right? But he also loves Seattle, and if he didn't have this job, we would both be here. So he's definitely staying there, and I go for long visits, and ideally in the future we will both be in the same city. That's the plan, that's the goal. How we get there, not totally sure yet. I mean, I have 2 cats and they are my babies, and I'm a crazy cat lady for life.
Awesome. I know the feeling.
Yes, and he is a bit allergic to cats, and has never lived with cats before. And so once we do take that step, it's going to be a huge learning curve for the both of us, and something that we've been trying to communicate very heavily on. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
As someone with 2 cats as well, I can empathize the love for the cats.
Yeah, he doesn't want them to sleep in the bed. And I'm like, I've slept with cats since I was 5 years old.
It's like, I think the thing that I personally have learned about cats is that whenever you wake up, I don't know if this is true with you, but for me, whenever I wake up normally to do my morning stuff, they wake you up 15 minutes earlier. They've got that clock. They're like, oh, it's time.
See, I think that is pretty common. I've had cats who do that, but the cats I have now, they don't care. They will just come up and snuggle me all morning. If it's on a weekend and I want to be in bed till noon, they just lay in bed with me till noon. And then they know when I get up, then they'll get fed. But
my cats,
you don't wake me up.
So usually I wake up at 5:15 in the morning. My cats wake me up at 5 and they're like, hey, by the way, I hear that you're the guy who gives the food. So that's the thing that we're doing right now. And it's want to be licked in the face. I don't want to be licked in the face. Leave me alone. And then they'll knock over stuff on the nightstands. It's oh my God. Can we train cats so that you can understand the magic of my cats? They're adorable. They're very fluffy and soft. And one of them's a big they're both big cuddlers, but you learn some morning discipline.
You do. I mean, we're going to be learning a lot about compromise here in the next few months if we do make that decision and move in with each other.
Have you ever moved in with a guy before?
Yes. I lived with my college boyfriend. We were together for 3.5 years, and we lived together for almost 3 of those years. And he was also allergic to cats and didn't like cats, but that was when I was at my peak of crazy cat ladiness, and I fostered I fostered so many cats during that period of time, and he did get used to them. But I don't foresee that happening with Derek.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that I think that one of the things that apparently you could just get a whole bunch of you could just get Claritin. It's one of my friends is super allergic to cats. He just comes and crashes my place for a week. Usually and then he just takes the Claritin. He's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Yeah, and I mean we'll see how it goes. I mean, he's never lived with a partner before, so not only will the cats be an adjustment, but I think us living together would also be something new for him. But then again, I mean, when I'm there, I'll try to be there for extended visits, and we practically live with each other. So he's very excited for it. And he'll make really sweet comments like, I was like with the cats one time we were on FaceTime, and he was like, you should just pack them with you your next trip. And I was like, you want the cats to be in your apartment? And he was like, no, but you know, I know that I want to live with you, and I know they are part of the package, so I want to live with them too. And I was like, okay.
I got a message from QO. She said she's 10 minutes out, so hopefully she will make it in time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your famous line in the show. Being emotional maturity.
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. Oh, crap. I had it. I feel... Oh, my God. I'm sorry. Emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You would know better than I would. All right.
I mean, emotional maturity is basically the same thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because you used it a lot. What does it mean to you, and how do you try and apply that definition to yourself? Yeah.
So, I mean, I won't get like super clinically. I won't get that on you. But essentially, I mean, the basics are just being able to like be in touch with your emotions and to use those, to help work through when you are experiencing some of the more difficult emotions. And then you're also being able to like improve your relationships with other people through that. And mainly how I try to like maintain that or improve it. The great thing about emotional intelligence is it's not like if you don't have it or low level that you can't ever, like it's not like your IQ, you know? So it's always something that can be developed. And I think it's something we're always, improving on and always growing in, and that we'll always struggle with because emotions are fucking hard to deal with. But I mean, for me, it's like, I'll try to take those like 5 seconds, when I get like just very aroused, some kind of emotion, or I get a strong reaction to something, and like to sit with it. It's like 5 seconds to like identify it, because then that helps you to be able to like move through that emotion. And then that changes how you respond, and that it changes how your relationships go. And going to therapy definitely helps with that. Doing meditation helps with that. Talking things through, which is something I'm a huge advocate for, like definitely helps me to, maintain a strong level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Just gotta like be in touch with yourself.
Yeah.
So, I want to bring up, because we've been talking kind of about relationships and social media. There was a really good article that got posted to the subreddit, and I think that you took a look at it. I think we all took a look at it. It's about kind of love and relationships in social media. And I want to kind of see if we can apply the emotional intelligence definition here. But so did you get a chance to like glance through it a little bit?
Yes.
So like, is that something that you ever kind of catch yourself doing? Like just like trying to like just blurt out my relationship on the Instagram?
Yeah. So, and even, I mean, perfect timing for this article to come up too. I think with Bachelor couples, sometimes you are under, you have a very public relationship, and sometimes that can be hard to manage because people like to speculate things. So I haven't posted a photo of me and Derek for a while. He's been on some of my stories and stuff, but I just haven't posted a photo of us for a while. And people have been sending us messages and commenting that we're broken up and all this stuff. And so it's almost like, oh, okay, I'd like to keep up the image and make sure we don't deal with the stress then of other people making comments about our relationship. We need to like keep this up. But on the other hand, I think this is where the emotional intelligence comes into play, of understanding that doesn't define your relationship. In the article, one of the things that the girl said was that she just feels really stupid that everyone thinks that they're perfect, and she doesn't want to disappoint people because there is this image, on social media that relationships are perfect. And that could not be farther from the truth. So for me, I try to share like authentic things, and especially even like on the podcast, like me and Derek went through and, you know, talked about, kind of worked through some of our arguments that we've had. And I just, again, Instagram and social media is always going to be a highlight reel, and to remind yourself that like, yeah, you know, this is a pretty picture of them, but they also have nights where like they're screaming at each other and have to take breaks from their fights, and, you know, they're still normal people just like you. And I think you can get into like a slippery slope of tricking yourself of what your relationship is, like idealize, romanticizing, I guess, your relationship by what you put on social media, and wanting it to be just this picture of what is on social media.
Yeah.
And that's not authentic.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fair.
So do you think that you kind of talked about romanticizing the relationship? Do you think that The Bachelor is pushing healthy relationship behaviors on the show, or is this just like, if someone were to watch The Bachelor, they would just be like, absolutely do none of these things? Is it kind of the opposite, like do none of the things that we're talking about here?
No, I think some of the things that they do on the show are very helpful in relationships, and are things that people can, you know, take away from and apply in their daily life. And one of those is just kind of working on being vulnerable and sharing those things about yourself. I mean, from what you see on the show, sometimes it like seems a little forced and a little bit uncomfortable, but like sometimes it is that way in real life too. And I think one of the biggest things that I take away from watching the show is that the couples, at least for Paradise, you take that time. Like you take that time out to have those conversations. And that's something that is encouraged. So when you are in your daily life and you're working and you have to take care of the kids and all this other stuff is happening, that you make sure that you take that time and you set that side of time for your relationship to have those conversations.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
that
that's
makes
good.
sense.
So there's a couple questions. So we'll skip going through Ask Men and talking about relationships there, because I think we're running a little bit out of time. I want to see if QO can get here for just a little bit, because she really wanted to meet you and talk with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
really...
hopefully too, I'll meet her at Rockbox.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You will definitely meet her at Rockbox.
Yeah.
But so we have a tradition on our podcast where we do 3 segments. The first is Rose of the Week, where we congratulate someone, say like, "Oh, you did something awesome," and I guess because you're on the podcast, this is your opportunity to give a shout out to someone in Bachelor Nation who you think is pretty great and pretty awesome.
Oh, okay. There's many of those.
There's many of those. That's true.
Just give them all. You're not limited to one.
I thought your audio cut out. I was like, oh.
No, it's just like there's a lot of those. So shout out to someone who I think is awesome. I mean, I guess I'll do Derek.
It's a good one.
Yeah, he's doing an awesome job at like work, and just like such a hard work ethic, and I'm like very proud of him for keeping out that, even though it's really stressful and he's definitely very overworked. Like, I'm very proud of him for that. So shout out to him.
I know the feeling. Being overworked.
Yes.
But yeah, Derek is awesome.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, if Derek listens to this podcast, we think you're pretty awesome. At least I think you're pretty awesome.
Shout out to Derek.
Shout
out to Vanessa too. Vanessa's my girl.
Oh, Vanessa? Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to Raven. I'll see her next weekend.
Nice.
Shout out to Dom.
So how often do you go? Shout out to them all. How often do you go visit the other contestants, would you say?
It depends. There's a thing in Dallas, so I mean, I'll be there for that with Raven and Adam. and Danielle will be there. Danielle's my girl.
Oh, Duo?
No, Danielle Maltby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Me, her, and Vanessa got really close on next season.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it depends. Like sometimes there's events happening, and if we can make it, we'll go. I mean, I think like we would like to have like a really big Paradise reunion, but it's a lot of people to schedule with.
So you said that you traveled a lot. How often? So like out of X times in a month, how many days would you say that you're traveling?
Oh my goodness. And by traveling, not home in Seattle?
Yeah.
I mean, over half.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because, I mean, every month is different, but, you know, I'll go to New York for like maybe 2 weeks, and then usually there's something else happening. Like just this month of March, I was in New York the 1st to the 19th, and then the 1st to the 15th, and then went to Vegas for Derek's sister's bachelorette party. And then from there came to Seattle, and then I was supposed to go to LA, but had some family stuff come up. So I stayed in Seattle. And then now this weekend, I'll be back in Vegas for another friend's birthday, and then be in New York for like 4 days, and then in Dallas. And so it's just,
wow.
I'm not.
So is the podcast like is talking with Taylor the thing you do now, or is there like what else are you doing in between?
Yeah. So in between, like work on partnering with different brands for Instagram. So it allows me to have like a very flexible schedule, to where I can go and have those visits with Derek and network and just like meet other people. Like one of the things I like doing with the podcast is like having other people on to share their stories to help not only give them a platform to, you know, help in their healing and with their process, but also to encourage other people to talk about their stories. So traveling helps with that. You know, like I'll have different guests if I'm in different cities. So
do you not do stuff like like how we record? Do you like do it in person always?
No. So sometimes I do things on the phone and people just like call in. I'll do it on like FaceTime audio through Wi-Fi. But yeah,
you know what's really uncomfortable? I work in networking and distributed systems, and I have no idea how to record a podcast on a phone. Like I this is why we use the Discord. I was like, this is the only thing I know. This is my life.
Yeah. I was so confused using this. I was like, what is this? But it's cool. I'm glad I got to learn about it. I mean, I have like a little recorder that I record into, and I have my mic, and then, you know, people call in over the phone, and it's really nice because I can, you know, schedule it whenever I need to. And the thing I love about it the most is just, for the most part, these are just natural conversations I'd be having with people anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, it gives me energy. It just feels like very connecting. It sucks that I don't have like the face-to-face that I used to have with clients. And that's part of it that I miss. Like, you know, doing a podcast, like I don't get to talk to my listeners. So I have considered like doing a workshop in the future. I wanted to do one in Seattle in April. But there's just not enough time.
Yeah.
Things are happening. Yeah.
It's because like how we do the podcast is a little behind the scenes sneak peek preview for all of you folks at home. So we've got the Discord server where we record, and so I have a bunch of audio equipment because I record music, and so I've got my computer which has the audio, and then we've got QO's computer, which is sitting in another room, which is hooked in and is just listening to everything and just outporting it to. And then if it doesn't crash, QO is here. QO has returned.
Oh my gosh,
hi.
Sorry.
Hello.
He says hi.
Oops, sorry.
QO was just working at photography event. She was
sorry guys, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Nice to kind of meet you.
Yes, nice to kind of meet you as well.
Yeah. So we were just talking about how we record. And so that's the sneak preview. And we totally got off track till we were doing we just did Rose of the Week. Derek got Rose of the Week.
That's good.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I felt like that was pretty fitting.
Yeah,
it's fair.
No complaints by anyone.
Yeah.
So limo exit of the week. This is a segment where basically if you've got someone who in Bachelor Nation you'd be beefing with, or even on the sub, or you basically want to say, hey, haters, back off. This is where you would voice your grievance.
Here's your chance.
And they would probably not listen, but if they listened, they would listen and feel bad about themselves.
The only thing I would say, and I guess partially because this came up on the subreddit, is like it'd be really great if people didn't give me shit when I don't wear my ring. Like, just because I'm not wearing my ring does not mean I'm not still in a relationship. Like, sometimes I don't want to wear a ring, and that's my prerogative, and I'm cool with that. So,
everyone stop looking for drama, basically.
Stop trying to make up a story about my life when you don't know my life. And if you want to know my life, then you can ask me questions. And for the most part, I'll probably answer.
But to make it clear to everyone, if she's not wearing it, it's not a big deal, basically.
But she's Taylor and she's engaged. She needs to tell people she's engaged.
All the time.
Yeah.
I'm Taylor and I'm engaged.
Yeah, basically. That's how I walk around.
So, this is the last one we're going to do. And then we'll do the play out and then I'll cut and whatever. This is a contestant question. I took this from the general bio. So do you have any special talents? For example, if there's a hobby you like, then tell us or show us.
I don't know how she would show us.
You can't show us, but tell us about a special hobby that you have.
I'll show you at Rockbox. No, I can't sing.
I was like, well, I'm scared. Just kidding. I won't come.
I mean, hobbies that I can tell you about. I mean, my cats, we've already talked about a little bit. And I used to be like super into rescue work when I lived in Baltimore. I did a lot of fostering and food. Like, I love like visiting farms and like getting to know, local organic farmers. I'm one of those people. So
you like your friend, she's a wealth of knowledge with vegetables and whatnot.
Yeah, she lived in New York for a couple years and she did like the foraging thing, and she she was telling us about how she walked around Green Lake and she was like, I found a pawpaw tree, and I'm like, I don't know what a pawpaw is, but that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's way beyond where I'm at, but good for her.
Yeah. Honestly, you'll probably come to Rockbox with her. She loves to sing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But
so that's yours. So now let's hear from Tex. Tex, what's your special talent or hobby?
Ooh, I'm really good at Microsoft Excel. This is my job. But they call me the wizard, so.
That might be the nerdiest thing I've ever heard. Amazing.
It probably is.
Me, and you live with me. How is that the nerdiest thing I've ever heard?
I take it back.
Kua, you want to give your special talent? You have many.
Oh, thank you.
Aww.
Yeah, that was sweet. And now I feel like put on the spot and I have no idea.
Do you want me to give your special talent?
I'm afraid.
Well, Kua she's very good at... Huh?
Oh, what? I was going to say I'm really good at giving, like, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but, like, love to animals, but then not loving me back. That's the one special talent I have.
Unrequited love?
I almost said that, and I was like, wait, that's right. I'm very good at that. Such a good talent.
She's good at that. But the cats do love.
Yeah. You have a passion for animals.
Yes, even when they don't have a passion for me. No, sometimes they do.
She's very talented at makeup and photography and macrame.
Oh yeah. I'm a great crafter.
Yeah, she's a craftsman.
Oh.
What about you, RK?
Oh, me? I've mentioned it. I play music.
Oh yeah.
I write songs. Yeah.
You're definitely gonna have to get together with Kit.
Yeah. Yes, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I saw that on your podcast.
Yeah. I have many instruments in this room. Beautiful. I think he would like it.
Yeah, his like apartment set up to like entertain people and like play on his piano and have a little get together. He always has Taco Tuesday, so maybe we could do a Taco Tuesday or a Rockbox get together.
Por qué no las dos? In the words of, I don't even know where I was going with that. Por qué no las dos?
So why not both? Okay. Anyway.
So yeah. thank you for coming, Taylor.
Thanks so much.
So we'll do the playoff.
Thank you on behalf of us and the sub.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So please, everyone in the sub, please be sure to follow Taylor on Instagram at Taymoka, and your Twitter is also Taymoka, correct?
Yeah, I'm really bad at using Twitter, but sure, follow me.
Yeah. So
That
follow
seems like
on.
a common for everyone who comes on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because the Lindsay Gavin, who was on The Bachelor Canada, she came on yesterday and she was like, "Yeah, I was like, please follow her on Instagram and Twitter." She's like, "I don't use Twitter." I was like, "Okay, then don't follow her on Twitter."
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
You
But
said you
yeah,
can follow me on Twitter if you want. Importantly, I would follow the podcast.
Yes.
Yes. Follow her podcast.
Yes, please follow her podcast. It's Talking with Taylor. You can find it on all major podcast distributions. Correct?
I thought it was let's
talk
Oh,
about
let's talk about it.
Yes.
Yep.
So Talking with Taylor is the okay. So
I do have that's my Gmail. Talking with Taylor 21.
yes.
Yep.
So yes, let's talk about it. It's available on all major podcast distributors, correct?
Yep.
As is this podcast.
Now,
so
finally,
yes,
you're
finally.
welcome.
Take
Oh,
it.
congrats.
Feedback of literally everyone, and we've shelled out the cash, and you will be able to listen to it on any single device or app that you want. That's all I've got on that. But yeah, so also if you want to follow us, we've got an Instagram called Bachelor Reddit, and our Twitter is Reddit Bachelor.
Which is also skimping on the Twitter side, but that's okay.
It's okay. We are just never going to get verified. Don't worry about it.
This off season.
I'm not verified on Twitter. I don't care.
Oh damn, we're literally never gonna get verified then. Okay.
So for QO, Tex, and Taylor Nolan, I am your quality host saying thank you very much and have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys.